A bit about your background and what your issues are and
Great.
what you do as San Francisco DA.
So, I've been a San Franciscan since I was 4. I was born in Iran to Iranian parents. Came here, went to Sacred Heart, been working in the city during my summers.
You were born in Iran?
I was born in Iran to Iranian parents.
Wow.
And English was not my first language. My first language was actually French, and then English, and I also speak Farsi. So here, since it's interesting questions that people ask that I wouldn't have thought to even get into. So I've been working in the city, went to Sacred Heart. My mom and dad got divorced, and so I was raised by a single mom. Ultimately, she sent me to school back in Washington, D.C. I went to Georgetown for law school, executive editor of my law review, came back here, and I worked for a federal judge for a year, which was a great experience. After that federal clerkship, I went into public service because that's how I was raised by my mom. She's a San Francisco State person. She's always been involved with her community, and my dad was also involved with his community. So, in public service, I've been in the Alameda County DA's office, went there because it has a reputation of being one of the 2 best in the country, and I've been there for 22 years. I've appeared in the courtroom over 1,000 times representing the people of the state of California. My conviction rate's 95%. I've never lost a violent or serious felony trial. I've dedicated my career to fighting for the underserved and the underrepresented. I've fought for women and children. I've prosecuted crimes committed against women and children and really focused on at-risk youth, women of color, minorities, and communities that are marginalized. People who don't have a voice are people that I've been speaking up for 22 years. And as a result of that, I have really engaged with the community, not just in Alameda County, but also in San Francisco. I've been involved in civic causes over the years. I started a program to help at-risk youth in San Francisco way back when with Kamala Harris called MoMA Matches. It was so long ago we actually had matches that we put the logo on. And worked with Enterprise for High School Students to help kids get jobs after school, and have also been engaged in Baby Hunters Point with Dr. Nadine Burke to try to help kids get health care, kids that aren't getting it. I'm committed to environmental justice as well. I worked, when I was in college in Occidental, I worked for the LA City Attorney on their Toxic Waste Strike Force, which has now gone on to become a much larger environmental task force. In the Alameda County DA's office, I've worked my way up through every rank, through every division, and I'm currently the assistant in charge of special operations and policy development. So what that means exactly is that I lead the elite trial units, from public integrity and corruption, human trafficking, unsolved murders and rapes, sexually violent predator, sexual assault, child forensic interviewing, restitution. We collected over $15 million last year for victims of crime. I lead not just very experienced trial lawyers and advise and guide them, but also their supervisors. And I'm in charge of policy development for the entire office, which includes going all around the country and training and teaching everything from how to charge cases to how to prosecute cases, teaching law enforcement, teaching lawyers, reaching out to nonprofit organizations across the country to help them with their training programs as well. I oversee several task forces. One of the task forces I oversee is 9 counties wide, includes now even Santa Cruz and Sacramento are a part of it. That task force is committed to eradicating child sex trafficking on a multidisciplinary basis. I also oversee a DNA Unsolved Crimes Task Force and a task force for sexually violent predators. The reason that I am running for DA is because I believe that experience actually matters. That San Francisco deserves an experienced, independent, professional prosecutor for their next district attorney. Experience matters because in order to lead an army of trial lawyers, you need to have first and foremost walked in their shoes. And I've been there and done that. Experience matters because you don't want somebody running the DA's office that's never been there to do that before, who's going to be making mistakes at your expense. At the end of the day, you need leadership that is informed and that has the experience to implement not just how you charge a case, but also the innovative reforms. It's not just enough to have innovative ideas or to want to implement reform. You need a progressive prosecutor who can actually implement those reforms, who has a track record of implementing those reforms. And I believe I do. I believe it's not just a management job, it's certainly not a police job. It's not a job for someone with just a law degree. It's a job for somebody who's been there and done that day in and day out in the trenches for 22 years. In addition, I think it's important to have an independent prosecutor. We're reading about the reason why we need that every day in the paper practically, right? Ever since we've had George Gascon as the appointed DA, multiple examples are all over the news why we need an independent prosecutor. Let's just look at two areas. Police misconduct. It's important for the police and the DA to get along, right? They got to get along and work together well. And I've worked well with the police for 22 years. But you've got to have a DA who can stand up to the police, who is not the police. Why? Because the system requires independent checks and balances. You must have those independent checks and balances in place, or else public confidence is eroded. And I think that's what we're experiencing right now. We have a crisis of public confidence and public trust. We don't know who to trust. So you need somebody that's going to stand up firm, who owes nobody and who isn't a part of any one organization. Somebody who just stands firm. I owe nobody and nobody owes me. I've stood up for 22 years. I've spoken when I need to speak up with the police. I have reviewed hundreds of cases in connection with police misconduct allegations that occurred in Alameda County, if not thousands, with the Riders case. So I have been in the front lines of prosecuting law enforcement, though I can also speak cop. I'm also the kind of person that has stood firm and strong against them, and they know that. And I have their respect because of that. But by the same token, we need a DA who can stand up not just to the police, and who will, and I will, but who can also do something about public corruption, municipal corruption. We have a very strong ethics body in San Francisco. People crave that, but we don't have a response to address it. We have ethics laws, but they're not being enforced real time. And you can't wait. And the Day case that just happened, right? Yeah. Really is the exception that proves the rule, right? So that's the exception. It's like, what else have we heard about in terms of those kinds of prosecutions?
And the Day case was just the tip of the iceberg. Yeah.
That's my point exactly. Yeah. But it's the exception that proves the rule. And how long did that take? So when I say we need to do it real time, that's what I'm talking about. Like, we need to do it as it's happening, not after the fact. I was vocal with regard to the way in which our appointed DA handled the issue with regard to the run. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying anything with regard to the merits of that, right? Nothing whatsoever, because I don't have firsthand knowledge with regard to that. But I can tell you, it's taken me longer to get an appointment at the DMV than it has the amount of time he spent on that investigation. What was it, an hour, 2 hours? And you erode public confidence when you do that. You need somebody who actually has a spine to stand up and do what's right. And that's why I've been going to Oakland every day for 22 years.